Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to my presentation today. I'm Kayla Mukai, and I'm a senior at Iolani School. For my project, I've designed and developed an app about land snails in Hawaii. With the rise of technology and education, creating an easily accessible app would be beneficial for educating people about endangered Hawaiian land snails. I have collaborated with Dr. Kenneth A. Hayes and Dr. Noreen W. Young of the Bishop Museum, who enabled me to design and develop a phone application about Hawaiian land snails for them. Within my app, I hope that people could learn more about snails and even be able to identify some in their communities. The question you are probably asking yourselves is, why is creating a snail app necessary? The creation of this app is important because we need to inform the public about native Hawaiian land snails before they become extinct. Snails are very important to our ecosystems, and without them, it could throw off our natural balance. Native Hawaiian land snails have great diversity. They are considered the jewels of the forest and are arguably the most diverse in the world in relation to land area, as there are over 750 recognized species in only 10 families. However, native Pacific Island land snails are in danger of becoming extinct, and 90% of the aforementioned 750 have already gone extinct. These snails are endemic and they are only found in Hawaii. This means that when they go extinct, they are gone forever. The issue is that there's not enough representation of these creatures in conservation management and policies. Some people may believe that land snails and other invertebrates are abundant and thriving, but that is not the case. Sadly, there is a high rate of extinction of native land snails, especially those of the Pacific Islands. Pacific Island land snails are the most imperiled group with the most recorded extinctions since the 1500s, and they also account for 40% of the 743 undocumented animal extinctions. The failure of the biodiversity research community to acknowledge this neglect of land snails and other invertebrate creatures has led to their current status. Additionally, another cause of the rapid extinction can be attributed to other snails. 53 introduced or non-native snail species reside in Hawaii and are invasive in our natural ecosystems. They also may carry dangerous diseases like rat lungworm. This is why for my app, I hope to be able to design a method using the information provided to me from the Bishop Museum to help people identify non-native snails and potentially help protect the native species. The reason for the particular creation of an app is that nature apps can revolutionize nature conservation efforts and environmental science. However, this power hasn't been fully used yet because conservationists need to better engage with information engineers, software developers, and potential users. Additionally, creating an app would be useful in the age of mobile-based learning, or e-learning. E-learning is a learning approach involving mobile devices like cell phones, laptops, etc., in which learners can access material anytime and anywhere. Collaborating with Dr. Hayes and Dr. Young, I've been able to design and engineer an app taking in the needs of both conservationists and potential users. I first began with designing the app, figuring out what would be necessary or beneficial for the app to have. This was my first time designing anything, so this process was very fun and interesting, and I definitely learned a lot. I first began by sketching the app in Notability, and then I attempted to create something similar in Adobe XD. Adobe XD is a design tool for mobile and web apps. Using Adobe XD, I was able to design my app and create interactive prototypes that I could click through. I clearly had no idea about design, however, as evidenced by the various colors that I used that were not related to each other. After reading through articles about UI, which stands for User Interface Design, and UX, which stands for User Experience Design, I was able to create a more aesthetically pleasing mock-up of the Hawaiian Land Snails app. My final design choices, even though I changed a lot along the way, consisted of this green color palette, a slide-out menu, information and contact pages, and more. Using these design tools was great, as it gave me the idea of what I had to code. Then came the coding part of my project. For this part of my project, I used HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are used for web development. I took a course from Udemy called the Complete Web Developer Course 2.0 to refresh my memory about HTML and CSS, and to also learn about JavaScript, which was very helpful. To code my app, I used Brackets, which is a text editor, and Google Chrome, which allowed me to preview my app. I coded the features that I put into my design, but then I couldn't choose between using a dichotomous key or a filter to help identify specific snails. I created a pros and cons list for both of these features, and I initially went with the filter. However, when I was coding the filter, I ran into many problems because the snail information just didn't match the filter structure. Eventually, I was able to figure out a plan for how to code a dichotomous key and filter hybrid method that would allow for narrowing all the way down to a specific snail. This was the final product, and I really like it because it allows for the user to undo just in case if they made a mistake, and also the user can go through the dichotomous key as far as they can and get the resulting list of snails. Regarding inputting the information, I did this along the way. Thank you to Dr. Hayes and Dr. Young for providing me with the information to put in the app. Most of my information was stored in arrays, specifically 2D arrays that allowed me to store the information about each snail in an organized manner. Through inputting the data into my app structure, I learned a lot about snails. I learned about the different physical features used to identify snails, and I also saw many cool photos. Finally, I uploaded my app to the App Store, and I'm working on getting it into the Google Play Store. To upload my app to the App Store, I used Monica. Monica is a cross-platform hybrid mobile app developer. Since my project is coded in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are usually for web development, I needed to use this type of platform to build my app and prepare it for distribution. Here is an app demo. This is the homepage where users can learn about basic snail information. There are image carousels, where if the user clicks on an image, then they can learn more about the corresponding snail. This is the non-native snail page. Users can learn about and then try to identify their snails using the dichotomous key filter hybrid tool. Here's an example. After clicking that the snail has no visible shell on the dichotomous key, the shelled snails are filtered out, leaving only the non-shelled snails. Then the user can continue, but if they made a mistake, they can easily undo, just as I did in this example. Then the user can continue as far as they possibly can to try to identify their snail. And after clicking on the photo, the user can learn more about the snail. Another page is the native snail page. And this is where users can learn about native snails and why they are in danger. This is the contact page. And the user can navigate back to the home page by clicking the snail icon at the top. Through my app, I hope that people would be able to learn that native snail conservation efforts are necessary, as this app was designed to raise awareness to the pressing problem of native snail extinction. Additionally, I hope that people will be able to identify non-native species, which will hopefully lead to the conservation of native species since non-natives invade the habitats of natives. To test this impact, I created a survey on Google Forms. I tested 4 categories: fundamental knowledge, understanding and concern, locus of control, and verbal commitment to conservation. Fundamental knowledge tests how effective my app was in teaching about facts regarding snails in Hawaii. Understanding and concern tests if people consider snail extinction a pressing issue. Locus of control tests how much responsibility people feel towards protecting native snails. And finally, commitment to conservation tests if people see the necessity of conservation efforts. I used these categories because I modeled my survey after Dimopoulos et al. 2008. My survey consisted of Likert type, multiple choice, and open-ended questions for these categories, as well as questions related to the user experience and impact of the app. Results from this survey support that my app is effective in teaching users about Hawaiian land snails and the necessity of conservation efforts towards them. Additionally, from the user experience questions, my app seemed useful in helping people identify and learn about non-native snails. Regarding the categories from Dimopoulos et al. Study, I received positive results from the fundamental knowledge and commitment to conservation categories. Participants answered my quiz questions 100% correctly and said that they understand the significance of native snail conservation efforts. However, my app had mixed responses in the understanding and control, as well as the locus of control categories. This shows that my app could use more improvement in showing how people can get personally involved in helping snails. Finally, I'd like to share some positive responses that I received from people who used the Hawaiian Land Snails app and took the survey. One person responded, "I think this app was good at teaching about Hawaiian land snails because it was really easy to use. I never knew how many non-native land snails there were until I saw the whole list of snails on the app." Another person responded, "Yes, I have learned that there has been a great loss of diversity and lack of conservation. This app will spread awareness and help people like me realize the importance of this issue." Another response was, "I learned that snails are actually important and vital to our ecosystems." From these responses, I feel that people who have used my app have learned about Hawaiian land snails and the significance of protecting them. In conclusion, I've developed an app available on the App Store called Hawaiian Land Snails. I learned a lot about snails, and I hope that and I can still be able to share my newfound knowledge and appreciation with app users. I'm so grateful to have been able to learn more about computer science, conservation, and research. Some advice that I have for future students would be to stay organized and motivated. For my project, to stay organized, I created folders on my laptop and on Google Drive, and to stay motivated, I set goals for myself each week. I would also say to choose a project that you're genuinely passionate about. After taking AP Computer Science Principles from Mrs. Okamura last year, I knew that I wanted to continue computer science through research, which ultimately led me to this project. Throughout this app development process, I've been able to develop my passion for computer science, and I hope to study it even more in college. Also, I've been able to learn about nature conservation, which has been fascinating. My final advice would be to have fun. I loved being able to learn something new every single day and grow as a student. Thank you to Dr. Hayes and Dr. Young for allowing me to create an app about Hawaiian land snails and for providing me with the necessary information to fill the app. Thank you to Dr. Chan for being so supportive, allowing me to take on this project, and for keeping me on track this entire year. Thank you to Mrs. Okamura for all of your help with this app, from emailing me amazing resources to long Zoom meetings to help me figure out problems I had in my code. Also, thank you to my family for being so supportive and my research class for making research so fun. I couldn't have done it without you all. This is a list of my references. Thank you so much for watching.